Good afternoon, all students. And first of all, wish you happy Doctor's Day today. We have completed all your syllabus till now, and from this class onward classes are all your revision classes. So we will take your class according to your exam-oriented questions. So be careful and read these classes frequently, and see this which classes we are taking. You just listen these classes carefully, then you read so that you can remember. And these classes, whatever the classes from this class to onwards, these are your, you will get these questions in your exam. Also, this will take, this month we will take your newborn classes. These are all newborn. You will get a short case. So whatever the cases you will get in your exam, we will discuss this month, all new ones. So this today I'll take your class resuscitation in newborn, which not only you will get a short case, also you will get this all equipments in your equipment section you will get in your exam. So today we'll start resuscitation in newborn. So we'll discuss on these headings. What is resuscitations? Why resuscitations? What is the goals of resuscitations? Who require resuscitations? When you will go for resuscitations, and where you have to do resuscitations, and who will do resuscitation, and how to do resuscitation. These are on these headings you have to discuss your resuscitation newborn. Also in your exam you will they will ask, or your examiner will ask only this. So first of all, what is resuscitation? Resuscitation is a series of actions. Resuscitation is a series of actions designed to assist or help the baby to achieve, or who is in difficulty during transition from intrauterine life to extrauterine life. So when one baby delivered, he entered intrauterine life to extrauterine life. That times what are the changes occur? If one baby failed to achieve that transition, we have to support by some series of actions. This is called the neonatal resuscitation. So resuscitation is a series of actions used to assist newborn babies who have difficulty with making the physiological transition from intrauterine life to extrauterine life. Then why resuscitation required? Usually the baby inside uterus is in hypoxic stage. What is the requirement? No, what is your arterial saturation should be in extrauterine life, it should be 50 to 70 millimeter per mercury. That's the arterial saturation required. But inside utero it is only less than 50. What is the pressure required? That is more than 50. But inside utero it is only 24. PaO2 is 24. So that baby is in hypoxic stage inside, apneic stage. When a baby comes outside to the extrauterine life, that baby has to means your normoxic stage. So from this anoxic stage to your normoxic stage, this transition period, some changes, physiological changes occurs. Those baby who fail to this transition will suffer some distress or asphyxia, and we have to support them. So by some series of actions, that is called resuscitation. So what is that transition? That is called feto-neonatal transition. So from fetal life to neonatal life, this transition takes 4 to 6 hours. Usually take 4 to 6 hours. Within 4 to 6 hours, some physiological changes occurs. What are these changes? One is first is organ of gas exchange. In uterine life, the gas exchange organ is your placenta. Placenta is your organ of gas exchange in utero, and that is a called parallel circulation. In placenta, that is a parallel circulation, whereas outside it is a series circulations. So in what happened in placenta, placenta will receive blood, deoxygenated blood, so you're descending out, and through your umbilical vein it will go to baby's circulations. So baby, so placenta is a placental circulation, but in extrauterine it is a series circulations. So these changes, whatever the changes occurs in circulatory system, these physiological changes occurs in intrauterine life to extrauterine life. In any failure or the inability of the fetus to this transition, we have to support. That is, so this in intrauterine life, the organ of gas exchange is placenta, in extrauterine life it is lungs. So these physiological changes from organ of gas exchanges. One is in keto-neutral transition. Secondly, what are the changes, physiological changes occur during this transition period? That is cardiopulmonary systems. First, once air entry, the lung is expanded. Once lung expanded, due to your aeration or due to oxygenation, the pulmonary vessels dilated. Due to dilatation, the pulmonary vascular resistance will decrease and also increase blood flow. That is when there is decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance, there is expansion of dilatation of pulmonary vessels, then there is the right to left shunt. Usually blood is from deoxygenated blood is coming from right ventricle through or ductus arteriosus, it is going to your systemic circulations. So when there is decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance, this shunt closed. Okay, then it baby enters to your series circulations. So what are the physiological changes? The first is lung expansion. Lung expansions, aeration of the lungs. Then there is decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance and shunting up and the shunts. The arterial level you will get foramen ovale, and this your artery level you will get that ductus arteriosus will be closed. Second, loss of placental circulation. When they will close, when you occlude the umbilical vessels, then there is loss of placental circulation. Occlusion of your umbilical vessels causes increase your systemic vascular resistance. So if at the same time there is decrease in pulmonary vascular resistance and there is increase of systemic vascular resistance, causes shunt closure. Shunt closure means closure at the level, arterial level, that is foramen ovale, and at the artery level, that is ductus arteriosus. Same time there is increase in arterial oxygen saturation. These three changes occurs during transition period from intrauterine to extrauterine life, that is 4 to 6 hours. Next is lung development. So to proper transition from fetus to neonatal transition, lung development should be acid. So proper lung development required. So for establishment of effective ventilations. What are the stages of lung development? That is your 5 stages of lung development. These are embryonic stage, pseudoglandular stage, canalicular stage, terminal stage, and alveolar stage. These are the 5 stages of lung development. So this lung development should be achieved before transition or before delivery should be achieved. Next, fetal lung fluid. What is the importance of fetal lung fluid? So fetal lung fluid, or you will say the secretory activity of the lung starts from third gestation, around your glandular stage of lung development, and that fluid what is required for lung development. That fluid what it causes, it expanded the air spaces, so that when there is transition, the air not only for this fluid is required for lung development and maturation, also for that it expanded the air spaces, so it gives a functional residual capacity to air spaces. So during aeration, easily the lung expands. So fetal lung fluid is also necessary thing that required for lung development and maturations. Third thing, there is a pulmonary blood flow. That should be increased pulmonary blood flow to absorb this fetal lung fluid. Not only absorb, also it gives a large surface area for gas exchange. So how it will achieve? Through ventilation. Once aeration occurs, when air enters into the lungs, there is ventilation occurs, that causes increase, that oxygenation causes increase your pulmonary vasculation and increase blood flow to the area. So ventilation, perfusion required, that causes increased pulmonary blood flow to this during transition period. Next is during increased pulmonary blood also required, there is to air enter to your lungs or airway, there should be reduction of or reduce of some resistance forces. So what are those resistance forces? These resistance forces, one is surface tension force, another is frictional force should be reduced during transition period, so that proper air entry or proper gas exchange occurs. What are these force? Surface tension. So that is when there is air enter to the lungs, there is a air and fluid interface, and there is a force that is called surface tension force. So this surface tension force should be reduced, so that the lowering pressure to open the valve will be reduced, and it allows the air to enter easily. Same times there is a frictional force. The liquids are inside the not only in airway, also in alveoli. So there is a frictional force occurs. So to overcome this surface tension and frictional forces, these are the resistance forces. The air pressure, the transformer air pressure should be high, or the first initial breath pressure should be high, so that it will overcome this two resistance force, so that the gas exchange will be occur. So these are the changes, or these are the physiological changes required during feto-neutral transition, so that the baby will adapt pulmonary, not only pulmonary, but circulatory adaptation, so that they will survive in neonatal life. So these are the physiological changes occurs during feto-neutral transitions that cause the baby or gives benefit to the baby for pulmonary circular adaptation in extrauterine life. So what happened? Failure to some conditions or any events that causes compromise the fetus ability to transition, or any condition that breaks that transition period leads to distress or asphyxia, and that asphyxia causes baby in danger. So in that period we have to resuscitate the baby. What are these conditions? Suppose any condition that breathes not forceful, because some the air, the pressure should be high, so that it will overcome the resistance force. So first breath should be high, pressure should be high, around 6. Required is 40 millimeter of mercury required pressure, but it should be more than 40, around 60, to overcome this frictional force and the surface tension force, so that it will not only to enter the airspace, also it will remove the alveolar fluid. So those events that break the breaths or breaths not forceful, that causes distress or asphyxia. Any foreign material that blocks air entry, that also causes decreased oxygen supply to the air cells. Again, excessive blood loss. Even if air enters into your air space, but there should be increased blood flow, so it will increase the surface area for gas section. So any excessive blood loss or poor cardiac contractility, decreased blood supply to the lungs, that's also, even if aeration occurs, the oxygen is not reached to your tissue level. Again, hypoxia, any decreased oxygen supply, that causes, remember, oxygen is a vasodilator for pulmonary vessels, whereas constrictor for the cerebral vessels. Opposite, carbon dioxide is a vasodilator of the cerebral vessels. So when there is decreased oxygen supply, there is vasoconstriction, the constriction of pulmonary arteries, that further decreases oxygen at the tissue level. So any conditions, any events, this is antenatal, either maternal or fetal, any condition that will break this transition, or that condition compromise the fetus ability to make necessary transition, causes distress or asphyxia. For this, the baby required resuscitation. So this is the long development. You have to remember what are the stages of, and at which stage or at which gestation that occurs. These are important. And any event or any conditions that affect that developmental stage of the lung, the baby will suffer from that disease in extrauterine life. So how after the transition period, how baby will adapt to the respiratory condition? But by 3 ways, baby will adapt to the respiratory. That is, one is mechanical, chemical, and sensory, or you will say thermal. So by these three way, baby will adapt. Respiratory means first breath, baby achieve first breath. So for initiation of first breath, by these three factors, you will adapt to the respiratory system. What are the, so first is mechanical factor. What are the mechanical factor required for fast breath in a newborn? First is requirement. What are the requirement required? So achieve the proper adequate gas exchange, the airway should be properly developed, lungs should be properly developed, and the respiratory center, that is medulla, and its brainstem, and the peripheral chemoreceptors, central chemoreceptors should be properly developed and mature. So these three required properly, so that baby will achieve transition and also for fast breath. What are the, so to fast breath or fast inspiratory breath, there is a pressure required. In extrauterine life, in our life, in extrauterine life, we for fast breath or for breathing, our diaphragm required, diaphragm contraction required, so that there is a negative pressure developed. That negative pressure causes inspiratory breath. But in when there is a transition from intra-aortic life to extra-aortic life, there is transition. That time, diaphragm not used, or diaphragm is not contracted. Only the passive pressure or passive mechanical factors, that is chest recoil. So during the delivery process, the squeezing of the during normal vaginal delivery process, there is squeezing of the thorax. So there is squeezing of the, once baby came out, that is chest recoil, that is the passive. So just that chest recoil developed a pressure, that is negative pressures, and that negative pressure, that pressure should be, that is called transpulmonary pressures. That should be more than 40, because the initial breath should be more, so that it will open the your all air spaces. Then further requirement is less, pressure is around 20 to 40. So what is the pressure required for first breath? That is transpulmonary pressure. Here there is no requirement for diaphragm to contract. Here the transpulmonary pressure, to generate transpulmonary pressure, the chest recoil, that is the mechanical factor, acts. So, and this pressure should be sufficient, that is more than 40, around 60 millimeter required to overcome the fluid density. That long fluid is there inside the airway and the terminal bronchioles and spaces. To overcome the fluid density, second is there is surface tension force, third thing is tissue resistance. So the transpulmonary pressure should be high, and the pressure, so that the air enter to the lungs and it will overcome the fluid density, surface tension, and tissue. These three forces that air should overcome. So transpulmonary pressure should be high to overcome these three forces. So here chest recoil is the mechanical factor that form the transpulmonary pressure. Here the diaphragm is not acting. Next is, once transpulmonary pressure is okay, ready, air is entered to ready, but the fluid is full, the air, all airway and the lungs are full of lung fluids. So same time the fluid should be cleared. So the clearance of lung fluid. So I said before, the lung fluid started, that is secretory activity of the lung starts from third gestation, and it will be more towards the second trimester, and again it is towards the term, the secretory activity is less, and the your absorption activities is more. So the secretion activity is due to your epithelium. The epithelium, there is a chloride transport, chloride ion channel. That chloride ion channel has been having secretory activity. But what happened during first period, or during transition period, or during delivery process, the secretory activity of the chloride system will be changed to your sodium absorptive activity. So the activity of the lungs, that is secretory activity, their epithelium, that is secretory activity of the epithelium, lung epithelium, change to your absorptive activity. So that towards the end of delivery, or towards the dawn, this secretory activity of the lungs decreases and absorptive activity of is increased, so that liquid displace clearance of lung fluid occurs, so that air can easily enter to the lung. So what are the methods? One is squeezing. So during delivery process, due to squeezing of the thorax, some fluids comes out from the from the alveolar space to your interstitial spaces. The second thing, due to during your normal delivery process, some catecholamines releases, mainly epinephrine and some corticosteroids, thyroid hormones. These catecholamines causes these changes of your lung epithelium from secretory to your absorptive state. Again, during delivery process, due to release of some catecholamines, your lymphatic drainage also, lymphatic absorption also increase. So these three processes causes clearance of lung fluid. During clearance of lung fluid, only 75% of the fluids clear. Only 25% remain inside the alveoli. That is the why this is, because that's first thing, the lung fluid is required for lung development. Not only lung development, also this 25% remained after 25% clearance of lung fluid. This 25% remain inside the lungs. It is for further development of lungs. Again, that causes remain that all air spaces little bit open. So this 20% lung fluid maintains the functional residual capacity of the lungs, so that once the air space is a little bit open, so when there is air enter to the, again air enter to this space, it easily open. There is no collapse of the air spaces or alveoli. So this 25% fluid causes maintain the functional residual capacity by a little bit opening the air spaces. Not only that is maintain functional residual, that also it causes equal distribution of the all air to the all your spaces. So long fluid is a requirement for long development and also for maintaining functional residual capacity and equal distribution of gas oxygen to all alveoli. So this is the mechanical factor required for first breath. First, to air entry, there is a transpulmonary pressure required, that is chest equal. Same time, once air enters, so long fluid inside the airway and terminal bronchial aspects should be cleared. Same time, there should be the resistance forces should be decreased, and that is done by surfactant. Surfactant is produced by type 2 alveolar cells. Type 2 alveolar cells. And surfactant production starts from the 20th week of gestation and is maximum by 30 to 34 weeks. So those baby delivered before 32 weeks, they suffer from surfactant deficiency. And that surfactant causes decreases your resistance surface, so air liquid surface tension force. This surface, so by reducing surface tension, it increases the by decreasing surface tension, it decreases or lowering the air entry pressures, so that air easily enter. Same time, so by this it decreases the lowering the pressures, so that also it maintains the functional residual capacity. So what is the action of surfactant? Surfactant is a lipoprotein, lipid plus protein. So it's actually it is produced by type 2 alveolar cells, and secretion starts from 20 gestation, 20 to 22 gestation till 32, and mature surfactant will be available in surface in alveoli by 37 weeks. And its action is it reduces the surface tension. By this way it lower the pressure so that air easily enter, and sometimes also it maintains a functional residual capacity. That is the action of surfactant. Next, once air enter, it has also some action. Once once air enter, the air pressure is 60 around 60 million. That air further displaces fluid, and that also that it also decreases hydrostatic pressures. So once decrease hydrostatic pressures, this pulmonary blood flow will be increased. Once pulmonary blood flow will increase, there is a large surface area for again displacement of fluid from intra-alveolar pressure to your interstitial space. Same times there is a large surface area for gas exchange also. Okay, this is the action of air entry. Once air enter, some action by air to for first breath. Last one is establish FRC. FRC means functional residual. Why functional? Functional residual capacity is the amount of volume of air after expirations. After forceful expirations, whatever the amount of air inside the alveoli, that is functional residual capacity. Why this is required? Because this residual capacity, the residual volume of air prevents collapse of alveoli. It maintains the alveoli little bit open, so that once in fast breath it is easily open. That's that is functional residual capacity. So these are the requirement. These are the mechanical factors required for fast breath in a newborn. Then what are the neurochemical factors? These are mechanical factors. Neurochemical factors is when there is the baby is inside uterus in anoxic stage or hypoxic stage. Okay, anoxic hypoxic stage. When there's again when baby will come outside in the external life, will close that or you occlude that occlusion of the your umbilical vessels, that there is further decrease in oxygen, and increase in carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a stimulator, your respiratory center stimulator. Also decrease in oxygen and carbon dioxide, that is stimulate the peripheral chemoreceptors. All these things just stimulate the respiratory centers in medulla, and that starts a drive for initiation of a breath. Other things, some neurochemical agents like prostaglandin. Prostaglandin is an inhibitor. It is a respiratory inhibitor. So, and We have, when there is any respiratory distress or anything, we are giving respiratory that prostaglandin inhibitors, indomethacin we are giving for initiate breathing. So there are some neurochemical agents are endorphin, prostaglandin. These are the neurochemical agents that causes inhibition of your breathing, and these are the factors: hypoxia, hypercarbia, acidosis that stimulate the respiratory centers in the medulla. These are neurochemical factors. Then to maintain, once breathing starts, initiation of breathing starts, but to maintain that breathing, other things that are sensory and thermal events. So during, after delivery or during delivery, this the baby inside uterus in cold environment. Once it comes outside, also it may be in cold environment. So this thermal also decrease in this environmental temperature, also stimulus for a breathing. Again, during delivery of the cell, touch. So that touch also is stimulus. Again, there is the baby is inside uterus is in dark environment. When they come to the outside in extra light, this is the light. That's also a stimulus for breathing, and also sounds in extra light. So these sensory and thermal events that maintain the breathing in newborn in extra light. So these three are helps in respiratory adaptation in extra life or during transition. So what about the circulatory adaptation? What is the circulation? Here from the placenta, the oxygenated blood comes through umbilical vein, through ductus venosus, through either portal vein or ductus venosus to the inferior vena cava, from inferior vena cava to the right atrium, from right atrium to the foramen ovale, oxygenated blood. From foramen ovale to the left atrium, left ventricle, and it enters to the, it supply only head and heart. These two organs will get your oxygenated blood, and deoxygenated blood will come through your descending aorta to the right atrium, then right ventricle, then through your ductus arteriosus to the descending aorta, and it supplies the lower extremity of the fetus. These are the circulations. So what happened? There is a, what is the transition? Circulatory adaptation. What is the transition occurs at birth? That we will adapt to the that circulatory system in extrauterine line. That is when there is clamping of the umbilical cord. When there is clamping of the umbilical cord, the placental circulation is excluded or removed. Placental circulation removed. So when you occlude the umbilical vessels, their systemic vascular resistance will increase. So when there is systemic vascular resistance increase, that closes your ductus arteriosus, ductus venosus. These ductus are closed, and also when there is increased pulmonary blood flow due to oxygenations, the pulmonary vessels are dilated, so that pulmonary vascular resistance decrease. So that the right to left side, from pulmonary artery through ductus arteriosus to the outer become reverse. So that again close the ductus arteriosus and foramen ovale. So that causes shunt closure. So by this way, that transition occurs. That is clamping of umbilical cord and aeration of the lungs, that cause and shunt closure. These three things occurs that causes adaptation of circulations in newborn baby. So this is the circulatory pulmonary and circulatory adaptations during that transition period. Any event that break or failure in adaptation causes distress or hypoxia, asphyxia, that we have to resuscitate that newborn baby. So what is the response of baby to an interruption in normal flow? When there is interruption in normal flow, so how baby will present? Like first baby will present poor muscle tone due to insufficient oxygen supply to the brain, muscles. So what is the presentation of a baby when there is an interruption in transition? One is poor muscle tone. Second is depression of respiration due to insufficient oxygen supply to the brain. There is depression of respiratory drive. So there is no breathing. Bradycardia, insufficient delivery of oxygen. So poor muscle tone, apnea, or stoppage of breathing, or hypopnea, or bradycardia, low blood pressure, hypotension will get due to poor myocardial contractility, tachypnea you will get, and cyanosis from insufficient oxygen in blood. So these are the presentation of the newborn when there is an interruption or failure to transition. Now, what is the goals? Our goal is to minimize immediate loss. So once you receive the baby, immediately you have to clean the baby and cover the baby. You have to clean the baby. First, you have to clean the head of the baby, because head is the large surface of the egg compared to your body of the baby. So by this way, you have to clean the baby, and baby have to place in a radiant warmer or radiant warmer, so that you have to minimize the immediate heat loss. That is our goal. Second, establish normal. How will you establish? Immediately once you will receive one baby, you have to clear the mouth and nose, all secretions, so that respirations of first breathing will be started. Okay. Second, third thing, increasing arterial pressure flow. So if baby is in apneic stage or hypopneic stage, or baby is decreasing oxygenation, you have to supply oxygen outside and give increased arterial saturation. Second is supporting adequate cardiac output. So if there is maybe any difficulty in adaptation to circulations, you have to supply medications, or by positive pressure ventilations, you have to maintain the cardiac output. So these are our goals during your resuscitation. Now question is, which baby has to be resuscitated? There's an asphyxiated baby. Suppose one baby, due to maternal or the baby or some placental events during intrapartum or inside uterus or during intrapartum or antepartum, any event that decreases oxygen supply to the baby, this baby requires resuscitations. Preterm baby, the suppose one baby delivered before 32 weeks. This baby are having a lung not properly developed, lung not mature, surfactant deficiency. This baby requires resuscitation. Meconium aspiration. Meconium aspiration will be the meconium block the airway, so difficulty to take air enter. Again, the meconium also decrease not only formation, also decrease the activity of the surfactant. So that again causes distress. So this baby also require resuscitation. Congenital anomaly. Suppose there is choanal atresia, when there is nasal block, there is difficulty in air entry. Suppose there is tracheoesophageal fistula, there is a connection between the esophagus and trachea. That may also present as distress or asphyxia. So that may also require. Suppose congenital anomaly, as suppose diaphragmatic hernia, this may be required resuscitation. Other maternal conditions like mother being anesthesia, receive any anesthetic drugs or sedatives or any maternal complications. This baby will present at birth and fail to transit from intrauterine life to extrauterine life. And that babies are required resuscitation. So these are the babies who require resuscitations. Now, who will do? Who is the resuscitation? So to resuscitate a baby, the baby should be person should be well skilled, and she should know how to give positive pressure ventilation, how to give oxygenation, how to maintain thermal temperature of the baby. So the person should be skilled, or there is a neonatologist in the delivery room. Those, at least, even if the doctor doesn't know how to give positive pressure ventilation, minimum he should know that how to maintain thermal or airway, like ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. He should know this minimal things. He should know for resuscitation. So persons, either pediatricians or a neonatologist or any doctors who knows or skilled about how to give this positive pressure ventilation, chest compressions, minimal resuscitation, this should be available in the delivery room for resuscitations. Now question, where to do resuscitation? Where? So first is delivery room is the site where you have to resuscitate the baby. In delivery room, once baby delivered, you will receive. So you have to start from that. You have to start resuscitations. And before resuscitation, what are the requirements? What are the prerequisite things you have to do so that baby will be easily resuscitated? These are the first is. So your resuscitation starts before you receive a baby. Your resuscitation procedure you should start. That is, you should maintain that area. Everything should be, or equipment, one person should be, skillful person should be available, and the equipment should be ready. So what are the things you have to do in delivery before you receive one baby? your that delivery room temperature should be 26 degrees Celsius. Okay, then your radiant warmer should be on. Turn on your radiant warmer, so the temperature will be maintained. Then your oxygen source should be ready. Then suction of the baby, that suction apparatus should be ready. Your for intubations, the laryngoscopes, for positive pressure ventilations, the ambu bag, and the mask. So this equipment should be available, and the oxygen source should be ready. So that you will get 100% oxygen, and also medicines. And the medicines equal to resuscitation also, it should be on the bedside. So these are the things should be ready before you receive one baby in the delivery room. Next question is how to do resuscitation. So once we will receive this algorithm or this the flow chart, you have to do accordingly. Any baby who requires a resuscitation, so by this algorithm or by this flow chart, you have to resuscitate. First is once you want to baby, once you will receive one baby. Initial step is you have to clean the baby. Once you receive the baby means you have to put the baby in radiant warmer. You maintain the first temperature of the baby. What is the normal temperature? It should be 36.5 to 37 degrees Celsius. So you set the warmer temperature should be 36.5 to 37 degrees Celsius. So first, once you receive the baby should be placed in warmer and in supine positions. Okay. Then position of the baby's head should be in midline, and little bit your head should be extended, so that your posterior pharynx, larynx, and trachea should be in a straight line, so that it helps in easy air entry. Again, to maintain this position, you have to put one blanket roll below the shoulder, so that this should be in single line, in a straight line, in this horizontal line. That is called sniffing position. Then you have to clear the airway. How to clear the airway? You have to clear first mouth, then nose. Because if once all secretions are in the mouth and you will do suction nose, that irritate the nose and baby will take fast breath and baby will aspirate all secretions. So you have to first clean the mouth. So remember, is M and M for mouth, N for nose. So first you clear M mouth, then nose. Also during your cleaning or during touch, they will aspirate. That's the stimulus for breathing. So baby will aspirate. So you have to clean first mouth, then nose. If baby having copious secretions in mouth, you have to turn the baby's head to one side, so that all collection will be in the cheek, and you have to suction. For suction, you have to require that ball suction is good. If ball suction not available, you have to, for central suction, you have to use that catheter, suctioning catheter. That size should be 12 to 14 French. And pressure should be 80 millimeter mercury. It should not be more than 80. And when you will suction, don't touch the posterior pharynx. If you touch the posterior pharynx, that stimulates that will will be vagus nerve inhibition, and that causes severe bradycardia. So better you have to use bulb suction, and you have to suction. And before when you will suction, turn the baby's head to one side and you suction. If you want to do suction through catheter, then don't enter the catheter 4 to 5 centimeter inside the mouth, and don't touch the posterior pharynx. So by this way, you have to clear the airway. Next is dry the way. Once you clear the way, you dry the way. First, you have to dry head. By head surface area is larger in comparison to the body. So first you have to clean the head, then body. Once you clean the body and head, then throughout that linen, again you have to put another linen and wrap the baby. These are the, so in these minimal steps, in these initial steps, if baby starts breathing, then that is okay. That is, if suppose sometimes this baby is not breathing, means that baby is primary apnea, called primary apnea. Primary apnea is already the baby is inside uterus in apneic stage, hypoxic stage, and the gas exchange is placenta. There is no gas exchange in lungs, so the baby is in apneic stage. So when baby comes outside, that stage continuing. So that is called primary apnea. So that baby requires some stimulation for respiration. So how to do? So you have to flick the sole of the foot. That is 2 times you have to flick the sole of the foot, or you can rub the back of the baby. If so, you have to take 2 attempts. You have to take 2 attempts to stimulate the respiration. If within 2 attempts, if baby's respiration comes or baby starts respiration, then okay. Then okay. But if suppose the baby not started respiration on the first breathing not started, that means the baby entered to the second, that is called secondary apnea. The secondary apnea may be due to some events or some diseases or something happened in utero or during delivery or during transition period that causes that prevent the baby to initiate breathing. So primary apnea before stimulation, that is primary apnea. After two attempts of stimulation, if still baby is not breathing, means that baby entered the secondary apnea. The secondary apnea is always, should be always evaluated. What is the cause? Maybe some diseases. Okay, so this is the initial steps. Once you have done everything, so once you will receive one baby, you have to ask 3 questions: baby is term baby or preterm baby, baby stone, this are good or decreases, and breathing and or time. If these 3 things are present, then the baby is a normal baby. There is no problem. You have to go for initial steps. Okay. When you will receive, you have to ask 3 questions. These 3 questions. If this baby is a tall baby and good muscle tone, baby is crying, mechanism is clear, and the color of the baby is pink, means that baby is a normal baby. That baby not require any resuscitations. Go for routine care. So what is the routine care? You have to do maintain the temperature, clear all secretions, and send to that baby should be with mother. That is the first step. Suppose with any of these things, suppose term station, good tone, or breathing, any one out of these 3, anyone is abnormal, then you go for first. You have to do this initial steps. Initial steps. You have to do this initial steps. Okay. After this, you have to evaluate 3 vitals. That is first respirations, then heart rate, then color. Suppose respiratory is baby is normal, heart rate more than 100 per minute, and color is normal, pink, then that baby is not require resuscitations. Suppose that baby is, suppose how to count that breathing. Suppose breathing is normal. Normal is 40 to 60 per minute. If it is more than 60, means the baby is in distress. That is 40 to 60 is normal breathing. How to count that heart rate? So you have to auscultate heart, or you can touch your umbilical vessels and count for 6 seconds. Then and multiply by 10. There, by this way also you will know the heart rate. And color. Color, how to know color? You have to see the tongue of the baby, lips of the baby, and body of the baby. If these are blue color, then that baby is sinus baby. But the blue color of the hand and soles, these are normal. That is called acrocyanosis. That is due to cold environment. The baby is inside the amniotic fluid. So due to cold environment, that is vasospasm. That causes cyanosis. That is called peripheral cyanosis. That is called otherwise acrocyanosis. Acrocyanosis is a physiological condition. That is a normal condition. So you have to see lips, tongue, and body, trunk. If these are cyanosed of blue color, means that baby is cyanosed. In that cases, you have to give oxygen. So if it is a tall baby, you have to give start from 30% oxygen. If it is a preterm baby, you have to start 100% oxygen. So you have to give oxygen supply. With oxygenation, if baby is improved, then again you stop oxygen and send baby to your routine care. Suppose. So that is one way. Another way, how to know the severity of the hypoxia. To know the severity of hypoxia, that is a Apgar's law. Once you will receive one baby, that is the one way. Once you will receive one baby, you have to ask these 3 things or 4 things. You ask whether baby require resuscitation or not require resuscitation. Another to know the severity of asphyxia, hypoxia, or severity of asphyxia. That is the Apgar score. So what is the Apgar score? In the exam, we'll ask frequently this Apgar score. So A for these 5 vital signs are under the Apgar score. Color is otherwise we'll say A for appearance. Here heart rate is your P for pulse, G for grimace, A for activity, R for respiratory pulse. So these 5 your objective signs in Apgar scores, and each one we are giving 3 scores, 0, 1 and 2. So Apgar score is why Apgar score is designed to evaluate and decision making how whether to do resuscitation or not. Apgar score is designed to know the outcome of the baby, whether after resuscitation baby improved or not. So Apgar score is required for your decision making, evaluations, and treatment response. This is required for Apgar score. And Apgar score for severity of the asphyxia. These are 5 objective signs. You are given score for 0, 1, 2, and total score is 10. Then Apgar score we have to take in first minute and 5 minutes. First minute Apgar score is same to your arterial blood or same to your mother's. So it will not show the outcome of the baby or the baby is in severe distress. So 1 minute Apgar score is not important. You have to take 5 minutes. 5 minute Apgar score. In 5 minute Apgar score, it should be more than 6. If it is less than 6, means the baby is in asphyxia stage. Okay, and you require resuscitation. If by 5 minutes the baby score is less than 6, you have to continue every 5 minutes till it should be more than 6. Okay. So maximum you can continue for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, still baby is not breathing out there, then you have to resuscitate, have to do recur things. So Apgar score, this is Apgar score, you will get 2 mark questions in your exam. So these are the Apgar score rates. There is respiration, crying, reflex irritability, pulse or heart rate, skin color, and muscle. These are the objective signs or vital signs we are using for Apgar scores. This is another way to know severity of asphyxia. Accordingly, you have to resuscitation. That is one way. Otherwise, you have to follow that algorithm. So the babies, you asked about the respiration, heart rate, color. Respiration is normal breathing. Your heart rate more than 100 per minute, but baby's sinus. So you have to give 100% oxygen. Suppose there is either apnea or there is heart rate is less than 100. What to do? That time you have to give positive pressure ventilation. What is positive pressure ventilation? So for transformer to start in breathing, you require a negative intrathoracic pressure. That is -3 to -5. -3 to -5 in negative intrathoracic pressure required for a breathing to start. But here the baby cannot breathe, so you have to support. So you have to give outside breathing, outside force. That is so with force we are giving oxygen to the that's called positive pressure, and for ventilation positive pressure. That is we'll do by AMBU bag and mask. What is AMBU? AMBU is your artificial manual breathing unit. AMBU bag, and there is a mask. So these are the types of AMBU bag for positive pressure. There are 2 types of AMBU bag available. One is your self-inflating bag. One is flow-inflating bag. Self-inflating bag we are using that our and flow-inflating bag here continuously the oxygen is running to that bag and you have to just compress. But self-inflating means you have to compress the bag, that oxygen out again. When you release the pressure, again oxygen enter into this bag. So that is self-inflating bag, flow-inflating bag. One more is TP's resuscitation. These are the equipments for positive pressure ventilations. So positive pressure indications when there is apnea or there is heart rate, even in ineffective respiration, there is heart rate less than 100 per minute. you have to give positive pressure ventilations. Then our initial is the PPV initial required is 400 40 centimeter water. Subsequent breath required 20 to 25 centimeter. Initial 40 required for your 1 minute. Subsequent 15 seconds. Subsequent pressure required for 1 minute, like 30 seconds. When PPV is administered to preterm pass, PEP should be used. PEP. So rate should be the PPV when you are give positive pressure ventilation. That's rate should be 40 to 60 per minute. So these are the equipments we are using for positive pressure ventilations. These are the in exam we are asking what are the parts of your ambu bag. You have to say all these things. What are the valves? What are the inlet, outlet? Then mask. Mask should be that mask should cover your nose and your mouth. It should not close your eyes. So proper fixtures on mask required. That is the ambu bag. What are the indications? If the infant is apneic or gasping, or respiration is spontaneous but heart rate is less than it. What is the contraindication for bag and mask ventilation? That is, you always remember. That is the diaphragmatic hernia. Or is meconium stent liquor. Suppose a meconium stent baby, meconium stent or meconium aspiration baby. The meconium is inside the airway. In that cases, you should not do bag and mask ventilation. One more is diaphragmatic. In diaphragmatic hernia, what if you give unless already the abdominal organs are inside your thorax. So once we will give more bag and mask ventilations, that will increase stomach, air in the stomach. That further distension of stomach further compromise the respiration. So in diaphragm you should not do bag and mask. In meconium stent is already meconium aspirated. So meconium block the large bronchus or terminal bronchus. When you will do bag and mask ventilation, further it enter to the alveoli. Again, that compromises the gas section. So in these two conditions, you should not do bag and mask ventilation. So you should know what is the indication, what is the contraindications, what are the types of PPV available, what is the mask. So how to know effective positive pressure? So if you will give, we are giving effective positive pressure, you will get rapid rise in heart rate. You have to see chest movements and improve in color, tone. Also, so you will get breath sounds and chest movements. And that is increased saturation. In pulse oximeter, you will get saturation. What are the signs? One is chest movement. You will see equal chest movements. Then there is rapid rise in heart rate, increase in color, improvement in color, and you will get audible breath sounds and saturations in pulse oximeter. These are the signs of effective positive pressure ventilations. So next, suppose you are giving effective respirations, the baby is getting good respirations, but the heart rate is still less than 100 beat per minute after giving 30 second positive pressure ventilation. In that case, you have to go for intubations. Intubation, because when there is recur of positive pressure more than 30 seconds, you go for intubations. Because after sometimes your person will be, or who is skilled person will be tired. Then more complication will start. So better go for intubation. For intubations, you require the laryngoscope and that blade. So for intubation, the position is should be in second. Baby should be in supine position. And one more thing I forgot. So when you will give positive pressure ventilation, your fingers should be C separate, like this. Your thumb and the index finger like a C, so that you can hold the mask properly, so to fit properly. And this middle finger should be like either to hold the mask, it should be C. When you will give positive pressure ventilation, you should be that E, that middle finger. So this C separate index finger and thumb to fix the mask, and the middle finger should you use for lift the chin. So like you have to do like this. These two for fix the mask, and by this finger you have to lift the chin and give bag and mask ventilations. For intubation, you have to use different blades. We are straight blades and that handle. For torn baby, you have to use the blade is 1, size 1. Preterm baby 0, and very preterm baby 00. And always the straight blades. You have to enter the blade to the mouth. Just lift the. When you see the local cut, you have to enter that endotracheal tube. These are the laryngoscope size. That is very preterm. That is 00 Miller company. That is 00 preterm single 0. And for neonate you can 10 or 1 you can use. And the tube, your tube, which tube you will use, endotracheal tube for intubations. So that size is internal. According to internal diameter, you have to take it. According to internal diameter, that is the size you have to take according to the gestation. Suppose when baby is or weight. Suppose baby one is less than 1 kg, you have to take 2.5 ml. If 1 kilo to 2 kilo, 3, 2 kilo, 3 kilo, 3.5, and more than 3 kilo, 4. So according to weight, otherwise that gestation you have to take this into the glove. And this laryngoscope you have to take for intubations. What are the indications? Suppose one baby, one intubation required when there is, after giving 30 seconds of positive pressure ventilation, still heart rate is less than 100 beats per minute. In that case, you have to do intubation and positive pressure ventilations. Other indication for intubation is, one is suppose one way to clear the meconium in meconium aspirated baby. Meconium aspirated, you have to clear the meconium inside the airway. For this, you have to take intubation and suction. Again, for diaphragm, in diaphragm hernia, you should not give positive pressure by abdo bag because that distend the stomach and compromise the respirations. Again, prolonged PPV. Prolonged PPV means prolonged positive pressure ventilation more than 30 seconds. Again, suppose bag and mask is ineffective. In that case also, you have to, and less than 1 week. In this, these are the other conditions where you will give intubation and give positive pressure ventilations. Next, suppose after intubation and give positive pressure ventilation, intubation and positive pressure ventilations, still baby is not, heart rate is still, it is less than 60 beats per minute. When it is 60 per minute, you have to give chest compression. Chest compression by 2 methods. One is thumb method, again is 2 finger method. Thumb method, what you will do? You encircle the, hold the thorax of the baby so that all 4 limbs, your 4 limbs, so support the back of the thorax, and this 2 thumb you should put in the lower third of the sternum. How will you know this lower third of sternum? Draw a line that will join 2 nipples. Below that line is the lower third of the sternum. You have to put this thumb, and the 2 thumbs should be perpendicular to the surface of the sternum, and you have to give compression. Why? What is the main aim? Our main aim is to compress, rhythmic compression of the sternum. By this way, you have to compress the heart against the spine. Because when there is hypoxia, there is decrease, so oxygen supply to the heart, so that decrease contractility. So you have to contract the manually. You have to manually contract the heart so that pumping out the blood, so that oxygenation to the tissue level will be reached. That is our main aim. So you have to do thumb technique. So you have to encircle the hold the thorax, encircle. You give these 4 fingers. You have to support the back of the thorax. These 2 thumbs will be perpendicular to the lower end of the sternum, and you give compression. During compression, don't leave this thumb. During giving compression, that should touch the sternum. Another is 2 finger. Here in this 2 finger, you are able to use the index finger and middle finger, or the middle finger and the ring finger you can use. And you have to stand side of the baby, and you have to compress. So what is the frequency? So you have to compress, that is 90 compressions per minute and 30 breathing. That means Once you will give one breath, then 1, 2, 3, again squeeze. Squeeze means you have to squeeze the ambu bag. Then start compress 1, release 2, compress, release 3, release, again compress the ambu. So 30 breath 1 minute in 1 minute and 90 compressions. That is the frequency of give bag and tube ventilation. Bag and tube ventilation. It is called bag and tube ventilation. First one is bag and mask ventilation. So what is the frequency in bag ventilation? In bag and mask ventilation, frequency is 40 to 60 breath per minute. That means first you have to squeeze, then release, 1, 2, squeeze, 1, 2, squeeze. Means that is 40 to 60 breaths. So bag and mask ventilation frequency is 40 to 60 breath per minute. That is squeeze, 2, 3, squeeze, 2, 3, squeeze, like this. In bag and tube ventilation, you have to give 90 compression, 30 breath. That is squeeze, 1, 2, 3, squeeze, 1, 2, 3. Like this is a frequency of. So by this way, we have to give bag and tube ventilation with chest compressions. So suppose after giving 1 minute of this bag and tube ventilation with chest compression, still baby is not getting this heart rate more than 60, and also color will cyanosis. Okay, even if respiration, then you have to give some medications to increase the inotropes. You have to give to increase the contractility. These are medications. So we are using epinephrine. So you have to give epinephrine either endotracheal you have to give, or by IV, intravenous. That concentration will be 1 is to 10,000. When you will give through ET tube, the dose is 0.5 to 1 ml per kg. When you will give IV, is 0.1 to 0.3 ml per kg. You have to give. This is the IV dose, endotracheal dose you can give. So question will come, what are the drops we are giving through endotracheal tube? You will get questions always in your Viva. Remember this. What are the drugs, medication we are giving? So equipment section also in your exam, we will give ambu bag, laryngoscope, endotracheal tube, mask, medicines. These are the things we will give. So these are the common questions we will get. So these are the medical. Suppose the baby is in shock condition. In shock condition, we have to give volume expander, or to expand, supposed to resuscitate, or to, for example, suppose the baby is hypotensive, you have to give some inotropes. Okay, these are the things, medication we will give during resuscitations. Okay, we will continue resuscitations. If baby improved, then shift to the routine care. Remove one by one, step by step. Remove endotracheal tube, then bag and tube ventilation. Then if baby improved, gradually shift to the bag and mask ventilation. If baby improved slowly, then you have to give oxygenation only through oxygen tube. If baby improve, then like this you have to go baby improve. Suppose baby not improve after 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you are doing resuscitation. Baby not improve, baby's Apgar score is less than 6 minutes. So next question will come, when you will discontinue the resuscitation. That is discontinue resuscitation, and you declare the death or do not resuscitate. That is, despite all the steps of resuscitation, heartbeat absent after 50 minutes. After everything you are doing here, after 50 minutes there is no heart rate, then you have to discontinue resuscitation. And one more thing, when you should not do resuscitation, even if you receive the baby having some respiration, struggling respiration or aspiration, you should not do resuscitation. What are the non-initiation reasons? These are conditions when gestation is less than 21. Because below 20%, survival is very poor, around 10%. So survival is very less in gestation, less than 24 weeks. One means birth weight less than 4.5. In that case, the survival is very less. One means anencephaly means there is no head, there is no scalp, only brain. Also, okay, so in that case also baby will not survive. In that case also you should not do resuscitation. One more is in trisomy 39. The complications are so much, or so many, so that baby will not survive. So in these 4 cases, you should not initiate resuscitation. So you have to remember when to discontinue and when to not to initiate. These are the, so all about resuscitation in newborn. Resuscitation is very important for you as you are exam going test. So you will get all equipments for during in the equipment sections. You will get most of the question you will get on resuscitations. Also, you will get short case for a new one in your exam. So this is very important. You listen carefully, then read. Remember. Next class, I will teach you what are the respiratory distress in newborn, which is important for you. Okay. Thank you. उधर
100 people, 96 people there, sir. नहीं सर, परीक्षा है।